Anyway, so the altar was there, generally facing east. Yeah, yeah. I did have one gentleman the other week. He turned up on his phone, and he said, "Yeah," he said, "East is it's just over there." And I said, "Well, they didn't have the god of Apple." Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? And that's the thing, yeah. That's the thing. We are polluted by what we see. I was saying to one of the students, which you'll hear about when I do a demonstration of the tree, that when you're digging, all right, it gives you this really strange reflection. And we had a burial, and she couldn't get her head round. I was trying to say, look, as we were digging it, I said, you are seeing, all right, the action, what it's telling us more about the living than the dead, because the dead don't bury themselves. So there's always an interesting perspective, and we have to be really careful not to get polluted by what we see. And we do that actually because of the town we live, because the castle's here. And I often wonder what this would have looked like when they hadn't finished all the castle and there was no bailey, it was just open.
No, I do.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you have an idea.
Actually, Adam, he's right. Because you take away these walls, especially where the Great Hall. If you took away all of that, you would have platform, and you have the sheer views looking north of the town. And I personally think there must have been something earlier here, pre-history, to do the landscape. There must have been, that ritual landscape. We've already got it by the church, and we know that there's a Bronze Age burial site that sits at the moment in the middle of a golf course and a racetrack, right? And of course, when they built the church, they said, we're removing the mound, all right? They believed that there were 3 Irish saints that were buried there. So there's a lot going on. But you also know that right in 1560, there was a massive change. So this was a religious house. It was a spiritual house. It was a house of God, right? Then 1560, they completely gut it, they refurbish it, they put a floor in, they put a set of stairs in, they put the bottom square windows because it was dark, and then if we walk around here, they add chamber, and they go to everything. These guys, that looks like. Ain't that something else? Not been dug since 1903. There was a chap called Sir John O. Bow ties. Very strange. For me, it's a little bit like the end singing shine. It's like that. So, anyway, it's very mindful. And the remit was any buildings, any human remains, we stop. We record it and we move on. If I'm outside, then there's scope for seeing what's underneath, if you know what you're doing. But you've got to remember, once you did it, you can't put it back. You get one shot. Yeah, one shot.
I've got to say, I'm sorry to add here. I want you to think it all up.
Well, that's a good point. If you just dug it all up, right, like the antiquarians did, you're not understanding. What you don't do is you go through all these layers of change, all right, and you're not understanding how it was built up. So the reason why we dig down is because I want to know how the ground's made up. So if I'm looking at that building, the bottom stone is laid first, and the top stone generally is laid last. And I can see halfway up they put a window in. Same principle, but I won't go on about that because it's just the time. When you're doing a trench, you get to the bottom of it before we fill it in. What I do is put a coin in, and we fit that there. The reason is because if someone comes and thinks that in the future, they need to know that someone's been there. So a coin. So if I pull out a coin, Right, so, right, 2012. Even that is not completely accurate. Within 50 years, but it's an indicator that someone's been in the outline of a fountain. It's here, you know where it was. One summer, I'm up at the top and I'm looking down, and we actually had the conditions where, if you're up in the plain, they were looking at oblique photography where you were seeing settlements appearing on the landscape because the conditions were just so right. So you had squares and circles and settlements, and then they disappeared. That summer I was up here and I looked down, and lo and behold, there was the outline of where the fountain used to be. So I shouted up there, they thought I was a regular lunatic down here. I said, just stay. Legged it down, gave it all the head, we marked it out. So we knew, and when the guys, they did a really good job. When we dug it, we had to not go deep, we had to go up, and we had to ensure the curving right, because again, this has been left. And we, sure enough, we missed the fountain. Now, on the one hand, there's part of me is like, oh, I would love to have done that. I would love to have found the connection which we did. But on the other hand, I also know that it's not really displayed. Because we are detectives, we are time travelers, and going back. And that's why police use forensic archaeology, is because it's confusing. But as I was saying to one of my students, we were in the tannery area. That's how we're digging. Got a trench. And I'm thinking to myself, how the hell do I convey to a student just how bloody awful it was spelled? Because it would be the processes that we use, like the rest of it, really would have been overpowered. And it's like, the dance, if we, like in here, yeah, right, people ate, but there was entertainment done, dance. Right, so how do you replicate that? It's fine, yeah, it's all right, they say Englishmen don't have rhythm, we have rhythm, there's no vowels in rhythm. Anyway, right, but it would have been a high activity, your senses would have stimulated, bit of flash. There would be tapestries, smells, lovely, some not so lovely. And in fact, if we look at the back, you'll see 3 entrances. And
when from?
That's about 12th century. Yeah, and there's a famous picture of the keep, as you can see there. It's quite formidable. And the keep, you've got an image of Henry of Scotland, who was mates with what's his bloody name? Stephen, King Stephen. And he's made it up there, and he's climbed over, and they threw him back over the top of the keep with a grappling hook.
Oh, nice.
Great. And there's a picture of him being flung, this wonderful dashing picture of him. Right, and the rest of it, how true that is, I don't know. But it did happen, and they took the car. So I might find some arrowheads or bolt heads or whatever in here, possibly. But then I know that they fiddled about with that in 1501 and put another entrance in. So I'm thinking, okay, they built that, then they jigged it about again. And then you go forwards in the Victorian, right? I mean, you go, see those hoops on the entrance. Does anyone know what they are? Yeah. I'll tell you what it is, those hoops, yeah. And they used to muck about it. And they put those crazy. It's hard to be honest now, isn't it? Right? Also, then in the Victorian, the women of the day and the gents would walk round with their little umbrellas of the day, and there was a footpath with a pea gravel thing in here. All right, yeah. So if we went down further, I've got all that in my head, and I'm therefore ready for what we might find. So that's that process. When we then step in, we peel back. We know where we're going to dig. First thing we're going to do, right? Because we need to know where we are in time and space. You know, here we are. Right, we're in the castle ditch. We expand out. We've got the castle, a bit like that image, and we expand out. Where are you in time and space? So I would record the grid where we are on the national grid system. I would take coordinates for where we are now, and I just jot it down, because once this is all covered over, in the future, if this needs to be investigated, they'll know exactly where the trench was. And it's good practice as well. All right, everything is measured that way, and that way, depth. So if I found in this trench, right, if I found this in there, and it was much lower down, and it wasn't disturbed, I need to take a level, because I need to know how far down it is. All right, that will give me an idea of the age